Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Jain. A very warm and hearty welcome to this webinar on CRP and a discussion on CRP in COVID times. Dr. Neeraj Jain is somebody who does not need much of an introduction when it comes to medical pathology or healthcare education. He has over 4 decades of experience in the healthcare sector. He's an experienced medical pathologist and a well-known medical educator and trainer. In fact, with over 23 years of plus of experience in managing medical laboratories, he is a very well-trained authority figure in quality certifications for Six Sigma Green Belt, ISO 15189, among others. Dr. Jain has designed several technical courses related to laboratory accreditation, quality management, and these have been well appreciated and accepted by the healthcare industry and are well known across India. So, without further ado, over to you, Dr. Jain. You can share your screen, sir. I've given you the permission on that. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Is my screen visible? And am I audible clearly?
Screen is visible, sir. You're audible, sir. Please
Okay,
go ahead,
right.
sir.
First of all, I would like to thank J. Mitra and Company for this privilege provided to me. And good evening to everyone participating in this program. And I'm very happy to see such a big enthusiasm from the participant side. 84 persons have already joined us. So today we will discuss a very basic test which almost every laboratory is doing. C-reactive protein. Although we are conducting this test for so many years, but recently it has gained a lot of recognition. Now everybody has started talking about this C-reactive protein. And when we thought about this significance of CRP during COVID times, so people were saying nowadays we are not getting so many cases of this COVID-19. Why we are discussing this CRP? What is the utility of this? See, although we have realized much importance during COVID time, now every even common person is talking about this, but we will discuss during COVID time what are the other infections, inflammatory conditions, different diseases we are facing, and how CRP is useful in all these conditions. Now, see, this pandemic of COVID-19, it gives us a lot of challenges for people in the clinical side as well as people in the diagnostic side. Timely diagnosis is very important. They have to decide about hospitalization. Only people who need hospitalization, they shall be admitted because of lack of resources, particularly in our country. But during this COVID-19 time, even developed countries, they have faced a lot of challenges. Risk stratification, low risk cases, moderate risk cases, high risk cases, effective utilization of ICU, who should be transferred to ICU, selection of appropriate treatment, so many drugs tried in this COVID-19, assessing response to treatment, monitoring and timely discharge. We are not keeping patient in the hospital unnecessarily. A logical decision is very important in all these situations, and it is very essential to save maximum number of lives. And whatever we do, we have to understand what virus does to the body and how body reacts to it. In this, we are not discussing pathophysiology, but what I am saying, this aspect is important. For this, so many biomarkers are available. Hematological markers, inflammatory markers, immunological markers, cardiac markers, coagulation markers, biochemical markers, and all these markers, they have pathological pathophysiological basis for their role in different diseases, particularly COVID-19. And if you see, this COVID-19 has heterogeneous disease spectrum. Manifestation vary with the age, vary with the presence of comorbidities. If a patient has diabetes or if a patient doesn't have diabetes, progress is different, outcome is different. Biomarkers play a crucial role in the diagnosis, in the monitoring, in the recognition of complications, and in management. And it has very crucial implication on the healthcare system as well as on the administrative machinery. You must have seen it was really a nightmare for the government as well as other people involved in the healthcare. How to manage all these cases and when all these things will end. And ultimately, all these things impact patient care in a significant way. Not only COVID-19 cases, other diseases also. During this COVID-19 time, you must have realized many other diseases were not getting due importance. It was very difficult for the hospitals to take adequate care of all the cases. Now today we will discuss C-reactive protein. First we will discuss little theoretical aspect. Then we will discuss practical concerns related to this C-reactive protein. This is a adular pentameric protein present in the plasma. It comes under pentraxin family of proteins. And whenever there is any inflammation, either some inflammatory condition or infective condition leading to inflammation or some neoplastic condition, there is inflammation in the body, circulating concentration in the plasma rises in response to inflammation. This C-reactive protein is synthesized by the liver. It is called acute phase protein. It rises early whenever an infection or inflammation starts, and rise occurs in response to wide range of acute and chronic inflammatory conditions. We will discuss this. And it causes release of interleukin 6 and other cytokines. It also triggers synthesis of fibrinogen by liver. And all of us have realized the importance of this interleukin 6 during this COVID-19 time. It was discovered by Tillet and Francis. In 1940, it was shown as protein and it was given a name of C-reactive protein because it was first identified in serum of persons with acute inflammation that reacted with the capsular polysaccharide of pneumococcus. And in the initial days, it was measured using Quellen reaction. And we used to say CRP is positive or CRP is negative. It binds to lysophosphatidyl expressed on the surface of dying cells or some bacteria. And what it does, C-reactive protein, it activates complement system. And we will see how this complement activation helps us. Sometimes people say this elevation of C-reactive protein is not good. See, it is the body response to virus or some other pathogen or some other unacceptable condition, maybe autoimmune disease. Body is producing immunity or inflammation against their own antigen. Whenever any such reaction, body try to control that. And it has its own mechanism to control that. So it try to destroy all these things through complement activation or through phagocytosis by macrophages. There is one macrophage activation syndrome. When there is excessive reaction, sometimes you can say it is hyperinflammation, and in addition to destruction of these microbes or pathogenic mechanisms, there is destruction of the tissues by the activation of this. This helps us in clearing necrotic and apoptotic cells and bacteria also. So that way it helps us in checking the injurious part. This, as we discussed, CRP is produced by the liver during inflammation, and it binds either with the polysaccharide or lecithin or nucleic acids. Polysaccharide may be of and this C-reactive protein activates classical complement pathway, and through this complement pathway, it promotes opsonization. So therefore, helps us in the recognition of these microbes or other pathogenic agents. It causes lysis through membrane attack complex C5b-9, and it also promotes phagocytosis through the activation of certain complement pathways. This C-reactive protein is the fastest responding acute phase protein and one of the earliest markers which appear in blood. Whenever there is any infection or inflammation, it rises above normal limits within 6 hours and then peaks in 48 hours. There may be minimal rise as we see in cardiovascular conditions. In cardiovascular condition, there is minimal rise when there is increased cardiovascular risk, or it can increase up to 100-fold in infection or inflammation. This is a sensitive indicator, helpful in monitoring of inflammation. We will discuss in little detail. It increases in many diseases. If CRP is increased, it is not diagnostic of any disease. But if there is a disease in which it is increasing, then a rapid increase in the CRP or decrease in the CRP during the course of disease, that has value. It provides a preliminary information to clinician that everything is not good in the body. Something is happening, some inflammatory condition or some infective condition is taking place if this CRP is increased. Normally, it is less than 10 milligram per liter, and more than 10 milligram per liter indicates active inflammation. What happens? This is an acute phase reactant. It rises early during the course of disease. It rises within few hours after tissue injury. Either there is tissue injury which is causing inflammation, or a infection is taking place that is causing inflammation, or any other cause of inflammation. This detection of CRP is more reliable and sensitive indicator of inflammatory process. Then the erythrocyte sedimentation rate. ESR is also indicative of inflammation, but it increases in certain physiological conditions like or some other pathological conditions not associated with inflammation like anemia. It increases with age, it increases during pregnancy also. I'm talking about ESR. CRP has value in these cases because it is not increasing in non-inflammatory conditions. There are many diagnostic platforms for the detection of this C-reactive protein, these conventional methods or newer platforms available these days. We have to understand what we have to keep in mind when we are collecting samples. For this, we are either collecting human serum or plasma sample, depending on the requirement, which technology we are using, and what is the requirement of that technology. This specimen should be free of microbial contamination. It is always better if you are collecting fresh sample and you are performing test as early as possible. But if you need to store this sample, you can store in the refrigerator, in the normal shelf of refrigerator at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade for 1 week, or in the deep freezer at minus 20 degrees centigrade, maybe little longer. But you have to keep in mind, repeated freezing and thawing shall be avoided. Generally, I take more lectures on quality. So whenever I deliver any talk, for some reason or other, ultimately I'll end up with the discussion of quality also. And all the samples, they are capable of transmitting infection. And you have realized the importance of this test more during this COVID-19 time. And also, this is a marker for many infective conditions. So whenever there is any requirement for the CRP, you have to see that sample is capable of transmitting infection, so you have to take due care of that sample. This is a basic thing. Do not use any component of the kit beyond expiry date. Before use, bring all reagents and samples to room temperature. Sometimes we get variation because of this reason only. We are in a hurry, we take out kit from the refrigerator and try to test as early as possible. And do not combine reagent from different batches. Suppose this reagent system has 2 components or 3 components. One is finished, other you still has some reagent in it. You're buying a new lot and you're thinking, I can use this old lot also. This is same. Don't combine. Avoid microbial contamination of reagents. Use sterile disposable tips while removing aliquots from the reagent bottles. Use separate tip for each sample. These are the basic things which every laboratory follows. All pipetting steps should be performed with utmost care and accuracy. And also remember, when we are talking about these things, your pipette shall be calibrated by a calibration lab, which is accredited for the calibration of that volume pipette as per ISO 17025. Many of you must be working in the accredited lab. And even if you're not working in accredited lab, quality is the requirement of every laboratory. So whenever you are using any measurement device, you have to see that measurement device is calibrated. Follow kit instructions very carefully, accurately. For this, latest kit literature shall be available in some file. Prevent evaporation during incubation by covering strips with strip sealer. Otherwise, what will happen? Water component will evaporate and it will be more concentrated. Results will be different. Deionized water for wash buffer preparation shall be used. It is not like that you are using tap water. Prepare working substrate solution just 10 minutes prior to adding in wells. And avoid strong light exposure during the assay. It can affect your result. This disease, whenever you are using this for any disease, effective therapy is possible when disease is diagnosed quickly and reliably. This you must have seen during COVID-19 time also. This tocilizumab and other immunomodulatory drugs, these are more effective when these are started not early, not very early, very, very, very early. As early as possible, if these are started, response is different, or you can say response is favorable. And these days, lot of research, lot of progress is going on in the field of point of care testing. That means near the bedside, most of the tests are available, so you can start treatment early. Whether these are tests required at the time of admission or these are tests required for some screening purpose or self-diagnostics like glucose monitoring by these glucometers. This point of care testing, these are fast and sometimes less costly. And they provide quick information for the decision. This C-reactive protein can be used to monitor so many diseases. Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, all these are inflammatory conditions. Rheumatic fever, this is included in the minor criteria of rheumatic fever. This you have this modified Jones criteria. It is included in the minor criteria. Ankylosing spondylitis, Ritter syndrome, psoriatic arthropathy, Still's disease, and all of you know this COVID-19. Generally, what happens? It increases in the first 12 hours of infection and fall within 2 to 3 days. And it can also be used to follow response to therapy, particularly antibiotics. When patients start responding, whatever is the initial value of C-reactive protein, it starts decreasing. And sometimes what happens, this C-reactive protein increases 4 to 6 hours after surgery. And after 3 to 4 days, it starts decreasing. And if suppose after 4th day, level is not coming down, we must suspect infection or there is a possibility patient is developing pulmonary infarction. It is also helpful in meningitis. In viral meningitis, it is not increased. In bacterial meningitis, it is significantly increased. And this is a very basic investigation available in every laboratory. If suppose you are performing lumbar puncture, and in this there are lymphocytes. It can be viral meningitis, it can be tubercular meningitis. In tubercular meningitis, you will get high CRP. In viral meningitis, this CRP will be normal. Or suppose it is bacterial meningitis. Partially treated bacterial meningitis. In this, predominantly you are finding lymphocytes. Then CRP will be high. And you can start antibiotics provisionally because patient is more benefited when the patient is receiving antibiotics as early as possible. It is also associated with the increased risk of future coronary diseases like coronary artery disease or cerebrovascular disease or peripheral arterial disease. In these cases, high CRP, in that we measure highly sensitive CRP. High sensitive CRP, if it is high, it is associated with increased risk of coronary artery disease or stroke, etc. You can find increase in the CRP in any inflammatory condition or any condition associated with necrosis or tissue injury or some non-infectious diseases but inflammatory conditions or collagen vascular diseases, acute myocardial infarction, bacterial infections in post-operative wounds, urinary tract infection, tuberculosis, or bacterial meningitis or pulmonary infarction. It is not diagnostic of any disease, but it helps us in ruling out certain diseases or in gathering supportive evidence in favor of certain disease. Certain malignant disease or transplant rejection, rheumatoid arthritis, rheumatic fever, or burns complicated with infection. infection in immunocompromised patient, or post-operative complications like subphrenic abscess or septicemia. It has utility in so many disease states. Now we will see certain areas where it has some importance, although it is important in all these conditions. See, in COVID-19, these inflammatory markers, whether it is C-reactive protein or interleukin 6 or ferritin, they reflect intensity of inflammation and are associated with severity of COVID-19. And when these inflammatory markers, these are correlated with the outcomes in admitted patients with COVID-19, there is poor predictive value. What I mean to say, if suppose a marker is high, it will not give you the information that this patient will definitely go, or the patient will definitely develop some complication, and it is not telling you this patient will not develop complication. Predictive value is not good. And one maybe the reason most of the studies analyze single inflammatory marker independently. We checked in this particular case at the time of admission, CRP was 60. In this, CRP was 80. We studied independently at one time. But in these inflammatory markers, following a trend is more useful, and also correlation with other inflammatory markers. In this, previously, the CRP was 60. And in 24 hours, it has increased to 124. Or in this case, CRP is significantly positive. And with this, there is rise in the ferritin, and also interleukin 6 is high, or D-dimer is high. This correlation with other markers. So if we are studying this independently at one time, it may not give us very strong information. Independently, the CRP didn't have strong correlation with the outcome, but it was found abnormal in many cases of COVID-19. Some studies, they say positive in 63% cases, and some studies show 84% cases. And one more thing is, if suppose it is not increased normal level, and generally it was observed, it is not associated with the poor outcome. This CRP integrates signals from number of different proteins involved in inflammation. So therefore, this is a very good marker of inflammatory activity, particularly useful in predicting clinical trajectories of COVID-19. For this, CRP tracking is very important. As I said, if initially it is very high, suppose more than 150 milligram per liter, or it is more than 50 milligram per liter, but doubling in 24 hours, then it shows there is more possibility of patient to develop some complication. And in one study, what they did, they evaluated CRP every day for 3 days. And a significant rise was useful in identifying vulnerable patients who can develop some complication. Rapid rise in CRP in 48 to 72 hours, predictive of subsequent deterioration and intubation requirement. Now here we are not talking about CRP at one time or single value which is moderately high or very high. Here we are talking about trend. or you can say tracking. And it is also helpful in predicting response to tocilizumab. If it start decreasing, that means patient has started responding to this tocilizumab. Because ultimately, what exactly is happening in these COVID-19 patients? Uncontrolled tissue damaging inflammatory activity. As I said, CRP more than 150 milligram per liter or doubling within 24 hours from more than 50 milligram per liter. Suppose it's 60, if it is rising beyond 120 or it is 70 rising beyond 140, doubling within 24 hours is very alarming. And another thing is, all of us know this CRP has utility in predicting cardiovascular disorders or future cardiovascular disorders in a population. If HSCRP is high, what is HSCRP? Actually, you are detecting CRP only, but in the lower range. There is minimal increase in the CRP in these cardiovascular risk factors. With this tocilizumab, what is happening? If a patient is responding, there is decrease in the CRP. Or if you are starting therapy, whether it is some other immunomodulatory therapy or tocilizumab, in patients in the severe category, if patients are responding, CRP is decreasing. CRP is decreasing. So therefore, there is decreased risk of future cardiovascular disorder if we are starting therapy early. It also has utility in the enteric fever. In the initial phase, what happens? Patient presents with, in both the conditions, with fever, decrease in the total leukocyte count, decrease in the platelets as lab findings. You are collecting blood culture, but it will take some time. In this situation, this CRP is very useful investigation. And in suspected cases of enteric fever, it shows very good correlation with the blood culture. So if in a setting, patient has high-grade fever, low TLC, low platelet, and CRP is high, you can start patient on antibiotics till you are waiting for the culture report to come. This is a evidence in favor of bacterial infection. It is also useful in known case of enteric fever in predicting intestinal perforation. Abdominal complications generally occur in the third week, and in third week, if patient is developing abdominal pain and CRP is rising, there is rapid rise after a steady period in the CRP, then you have to be very cautious. You have to be very careful. Is this patient developing intestinal perforation? Very useful investigation in neonatal septicemia. This condition shall be diagnosed as early as possible. In neonate, we don't count the age in months. We don't count the age in days. We count till 7 days. We count age in hours. Age is 24 hours. Age is 43 hours. Age is 60 hours. Till 168 hours, we count age in hours. Then we start counting in days. And it has very high negative predictive value. What I mean to say, if CRP is normal, suppose you are suspecting septicemia and CRP is normal, you are collecting culture also, you are sending culture to laboratory, you are sending sample for this counts also, count is normal. There is no shift to left, no bandemia. You're collecting sample for CRP again after 24 hours. It is still normal. After 48 hours also normal. Then the possibility of bacterial sepsis is unlikely. It has very high negative predictive value. This is the meaning of negative predictive value. And if a patient has CRP and you're suspecting septicemia, you can start antibiotics in this case, because this is a presumptive evidence in favor of septicemia. And whenever you will get the report of that blood culture, then you can say whether a particular antibiotic you can use or not in that situation. And decrease in the CRP means patient is responding to therapy. We discussed previously dengue in comparison to enteric fever. But suppose this CRP is not raised, but increase in CRP in confirmed case of dengue, where the CRP was normal in the beginning, it raises suspicion of dengue shock syndrome or any associated bacterial sepsis. So you have to be very cautious. There is possibility of developing this dengue shock syndrome, and send culture immediately, look for bacterial sepsis. Inflammatory connective tissue disease, again, negative predictive value is very high, and this is also included in the minor criteria of rheumatic fever. And in known, okay, first we will talk about this heart disease. Increased level of this CRP is associated with possibility of this coronary heart disease or stroke. And there is a recommendation of Joint Committee of American Heart Association and Center for Disease Control and Prevention on CRP testing to assess coronary heart disease risk. HSCRP is the analyte of choice. In this, we collect two specimens, 2 weeks apart. We take the average of these. If it is more than 10 milligram per liter, search for any infection or inflammation and test after 2 weeks again. Less than 1 is associated with low risk, 1 to 3 with the intermediate risk, and more than 3 is associated with the high risk. And generally, if there is, it is not recommended as a universal screening. It shall be performed if it is required. Now we will discuss few case studies. Now look at this case. Patient with fever, cough, shortness of breath, and patient is feeling unwell. Sometimes you must have seen patients also say, give us some antibiotics, some good antibiotics, so that we can return to our work quickly. On examination, heart rate was 90 beats per minute and respiratory rate was 22 per minute. There was some tachycardia and tachypnea. Auscultation revealed diffuse wheeze and clear rhonchi. One thing is, you prescribe antibiotics to keep the patient happy, because there is possibility it can be bacterial. But what happens? We have seen in our experience, 90% of respiratory tract infections are caused by virus, and in these cases, antibiotics are unlikely to have any clinical benefit for the patient. So this is not a judicious use of antibiotics. And these days we are talking a lot about antimicrobial stewardship, judicious use of antimicrobial therapy, unnecessarily exposing the patient natural flora to antibiotics If suppose a patient is receiving antibiotic which is not required, GI microflora will unnecessarily be predisposed to these antibiotics, and there are chances of resistance, and also there is possibility of development of some other inflammatory pathology, and there is risk of developing kidney damage or healthcare associated infections such as Clostridium difficile. In this case, laboratory performed the CRP test and they got the result within a minute, and CRP level was 16 milligram per liter. Upper limit is 10. And this significant increase in CRP indicate need for immediate antibiotic treatment, and CRP level decreased significantly after the therapy. In second case, as we were discussing neonatal septicemia, neonatal sepsis is a very leading factor in neonatal mortality and morbidity. Early diagnosis is very important. Early diagnosis and early start of therapy. Although conventional blood culture is still the gold standard method for the diagnosis, but it takes some time. And it detects pathogen in only 25% of cases, so it has low sensitivity. And if suppose patient is on antibiotic, we have already started antibiotic, and after that we are collecting blood culture, we may get a negative report. What is this called as? False negative. There is a time delay. And unnecessary, we are subjecting neonates to this broad spectrum antibiotics empirically till we are able to exclude infection by negative culture report. And this antibiotic overuse favors the development of resistance, has some complication also. Certain aminoglycosides which we are using, nephrotoxic, and again there is some problem. In these cases, C-reactive protein plays a very important role, as we discussed earlier also. And as we discussed, it has very high negative predictive value, so it is helpful in excluding infection in suspected cases. And if it is positive, we are starting therapy, or if it is decreasing, it helps us in deciding when we can discontinue the antibiotics. And it is very cost effective also. Also, there is decrease in the possibility of development of resistance and hospital stay duration. Important thing is our understanding of CRP detection has come a long way, and over the year it has become a versatile inflammatory marker for the detection of systemic inflammatory condition. This is a very useful biomarker which shall be integrated in the bedside decision making, and it makes that decision meaningful. If we have CRP result with us in addition to clinical evaluation, it helps us in deciding about the antibiotics or in deciding against the antibiotics. But availability of these biomarkers and cost issues cannot be ignored. And this C-reactive protein, it is very cost effective. Simple, easy test. Machines are also not very costly, which you are using, and most of the biochemistry analyzers, they also have facility for this C-reactive protein, and it is easily available. It can be easily started in any small or medium-sized laboratory. I'm not talking about large-sized laboratory, and it is providing very useful investigation. And considering our country, considering the cost associated with other inflammatory marker expertise associated with the other inflammatory markers, logistics required with the other inflammatory markers, this really has utility in this present COVID time and in the time to come. But what happens? Sometimes a good understanding is very important. To people who are in the clinical practice, people who are in the laboratory practice, and our regulators, administrators, they all should work together in developing the national regional guidelines so that collectively we can tailor the available information to suit local population. And this is a very essential step which every country should take. Thank you very much for sparing time.
Dr. Jain, thank you very much. I mean, that was very enlightening. We've, as an organization, we have also been working on both CRP and HSCRP, and it is the presentation was extremely enlightening. I mean, you covered a vast area. I mean, affected by the rise or even the lack of rise, as a positive predictive value, as a negative predictor. CRP serves, I think it serves so many purposes today that a lot of people, and I don't think the awareness level is there, that to that level, or what is possible in medical diagnosis with the use of CRP. There was a question that came up on the chat screen with one of our attendees, one of the doctors. What is the significance of HSCRP in neonatal septicemia patients?
No. See what happens. This C reactive protein, there is only one test that is called C reactive protein, and it covers a wide range. And when we are developing a method which is showing early rise, which is only showing early rise, we call that as highly sensitive CRP. But it is actually not a correct term. It is not reflecting the true message. There is nothing like highly sensitive CRP. It is only detecting the early rise in the beginning. So, as for this, what happens whenever we think about some costly test, most of the laboratories, they are not able to perform, and they sometimes think only this particular test is useful in this particular situation. In neonatal septicemia, our conventional CRP is very good. Whatever we are using, if suppose I am saying, even if suppose some laboratory is performing this by latex agglutination, and they are saying this CRP is positive, and then they are performing that in dilution, and they are reporting it is positive in 1:4. Even that is providing adequate information. That much information is sufficient.
Okay.
So HSCRP, they have advocated on cardiovascular risk.
Thank you, sir. Another factor of your presentation, which I really liked, was you not only talked about the testing part, but effective testing and the best laboratory practices. Because I do believe, I go to laboratories all the time, I meet users, and I do observe that, well, they have learned all the best laboratory practices, in college, in medical school, in whatever education institution that they have gone through. A lot of those are left on the side. You don't follow them unless there is constant reinforcement of those good laboratory practices. I understand the NABL and other associated certifications are designed to improve laboratory practices, right? To make them enhance their use and make them better as we go forward. But like you said, the simplest points that you covered today in your presentation, whether it was as simple a point as saying, don't continuously freeze and thaw your reagents, right? It's not something I think everybody remembers or choose to remember when they are doing testing, because as good a test as any as may be available in the market today, eventually it comes down to the person doing the test and following those good laboratory practices. So, your take on that is highly appreciated, sir. And any, final words you would like to tell people, especially about good laboratory practices, would be very useful. I think something like, you've talked about CRP and given home a take-home message on CRP. We would appreciate another take-home message about the use of good laboratory practices, because that really makes or breaks the test eventually, sir.
See, these days everybody is talking about accreditation. People say we have this accreditation, we have ISO 15189 accreditation, either by our national body, suppose we are talking about India, this NABL accreditation, or sometimes people say we have CAP accreditation by College of American Pathologists. Therefore, our laboratory is very good. Sometimes people say we have highly sophisticated, very automated equipments. Therefore, our laboratory is very good. Or we have our laboratory in the best area of the city where the property rates are very high. Like in Mumbai, you have suppose laboratory at Pedder Road, or in Calcutta, Alipur, in Delhi, either in the Connaught Place area or in the Golf Links or in the Hajj Khas. People say, we have our laboratory there and you have your laboratory in the Rohini. So that is not a very good area. But see, ultimately, we have to understand what is the science behind a particular test and whether we are following that science or not. And if you have automation, that is very good. You have reduced your analytical error tremendously, but 80 to 85% errors are occurring during pre-examination, post-examination. How a sample is collected and how a report is delivered. A simple test, hemoglobin. If you have clot in the blood, you will not get correct platelet count, whatever machine you have. And if suppose you're typing report, instead of 1,40,000, you are typing 14,000, there is some displacement of that decimal, you will not get the correct result. So we have to be vigilant at each and every step. First, we need quality from inside. Then we can incorporate anything from the outside.
Thank you very much, sir. We would really like to have come and given you the certificate in person, but as you know, that COVID times, we are still living in COVID times. Maybe not COVID-19 times, but COVID times nonetheless. Please accept this little certificate from our end, sir. And you will be somebody from our team, a senior member of our team, will be meeting you shortly over the next few weeks or so and delivering the actual certificate in person. But for now, we would only be able to give an e-certificate as a certificate of appreciation, sir. Thank you, sir, for your time and brilliant presentation, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I would like to thank everybody who has attended this particular presentation. Thank you for taking the time out for interacting with us. We look forward to interacting with you next on the 29th of October. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.